Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we are tackling something absolutely huge. We're unpacking a truly fascinating source text that walks us through a step-by-step philosophical deduction regarding literally one of the biggest questions of all time, the origins of the universe. The material we're looking at today breaks down the logic behind eternal creation. It uses strict, rational arguments to deduce exactly how everything around us came to be. It's an incredibly structured, logical journey, and we are going to map the whole thing out.
To really kick things off, the text uses this brilliant thought experiment. Imagine this. You wake up in a completely sealed, empty stone room. You're bored, so you fall asleep, and when you wake up again, bam, there is suddenly a desk and a computer sitting right in the middle of the room. The screen just reads, "This came from nothing." Would you actually believe that? Well, of course not. Your intuition immediately tells you that things just don't pop into existence without a cause. You'd instantly start trying to play detective, figuring out exactly where it came from. The source actually uses this exact premise as the starting point for our investigation into the ultimate mystery of existence itself.
All right, let's jump straight into our roadmap for today. We're going to treat this like a strict process of elimination to find the single logical explanation for existence, based entirely on the source text. We'll hit 1. The mystery of existence. 2. The finite universe. 3. Nothingness and self-creation. 4. The infinite regress problem. 5. The uncreated creator. And finally 6. Attributes of eternal creation. So, starting off with part 1, the mystery of existence and the 4 logical possibilities. Think of this like a philosophical detective case. The text lays out exactly 4, and only 4, possible explanations for how any finite thing comes into being. Suspect number 1, it was created by nothing. Suspect 2, it created itself. Suspect 3, it was created by something else that was created. And suspect 4, it was created by something uncreated. Our mission today is to follow the logic of the source material, investigate these options, and systematically eliminate the impossible suspects until only one is left standing.
Move right along to Section 2, the finite universe, and why actual infinity fails.
Now, before we figure out how the universe was created, the text argues we have to prove that it actually was created, that it's finite and had a definite beginning. And here's a really crucial distinction the source makes. It points out that while infinity works totally fine on a chalkboard as an abstract mathematical concept, an actual physical infinity, like an infinite number of real, discrete physical objects, is literally impossible to realize in the real world.
To prove this, the source offers a couple of really great analogies. Picture an infinitely large bag of balls. If you reach in and take 2 balls out, how many are left? Well, mathematically, infinity minus 2 is still just infinity. But in practical, physical reality, you objectively have 2 fewer balls than you had a second ago. The text also uses a stack of cubes extending infinitely upward. If you try to remove the top cube, you just can't, because an infinite stack doesn't have a top. Because the universe is made up of discrete physical things, atoms, planets, stars, the source concludes it cannot be actually infinite. It has to be finite, which means it definitely had a beginning.
Section 3, Nothingness and Self-Creation, where we eliminate suspects 1 and 2. Okay, since we've established the universe had a beginning, let's start crossing off those impossible explanations from our list. Let's tackle suspect 1, that the universe came from absolutely nothing. You might have heard some modern scientists like Lawrence Krauss argue that the universe could come from nothing, usually pointing to quantum vacuums where particles just seem to pop in and out of existence. But the source pushes back pretty hard on this. It quotes physicist David Albert to point out a massive flaw here. Krauss's version of nothing is actually something. A quantum vacuum is a physical state. It's governed by physical laws. As the quote says, it's an arrangement of physical stuff, no different than giraffes or refrigerators. It is definitely not true nothingness. So what does true philosophical nothing actually mean? The text clarifies it's the absolute absence of all things. No matter, no energy, no causal conditions. You simply cannot get being from non-being. As the text lays out, 0 plus 0 plus 0, well, it just equals 0. So, suspect 1, creation from true nothing, is officially eliminated. All right, what about suspect 2, self-creation? The source poses a kind of humorous, paradoxical question for this one. Is it possible for a mother to give birth to herself? Obviously not, right? Because to give birth, she would have to already exist. Self-creation implies that something existed before it existed, which is just a flat-out logical contradiction. Something that does not yet exist has absolutely zero power to create anything. And with that, suspect 2 is firmly eliminated.
Section 4. The infinite regress problem and the flaw of infinite causes.
So we are down to just 2 choices. Let's look at suspect 3. The idea that the universe was created by another created thing, which was created by another created thing, and on forever. Philosophers call this an infinite regress. To expose the rational flaw here, the text uses this brilliant sniper analogy. Imagine a sniper needs permission from headquarters to shoot, but HQ needs permission from the general, who needs permission from the president, and so on. If this chain of asking for permission goes on endlessly forever, does that shot ever get fired? No, because the permission literally never arrives. If the universe's existence depended on an infinite, never-ending chain of created creators, the universe would never have come into existence. But we're here, so suspect 3 is eliminated.
Section 5. The uncreated creator, the only remaining conclusion. Okay, process of elimination. We've ruled out creation from nothing. We've ruled out self-creation, and we just ruled out an infinite chain of created creators. According to the strict logic of the text, that leaves us with exactly one explanation. The conclusion of this philosophical deduction posits an uncreated creator. Because our universe is finite, dependent, and definitely came to be, there absolutely must be a first cause that is uncaused, always existed, and never came to be. It has to step entirely outside the bounds of finite creation.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Attributes of Eternal Creation, Profiling the First Cause.
The source text doesn't just stop at that conclusion. It goes a step further by essentially profiling this uncreated creator. It deduces 5 key traits it must possess. Because it's uncreated, it must be eternal. Because it created the finite universe, it can't be part of it, so it must be transcendent. Kind of like how a carpenter is completely distinct from the wooden chair he builds. Because our universe operates on such precise physics, the creator must be knowing. Because the universe contains just immense amounts of atomic energy, the creator must be incredibly powerful. And finally, it must have a will.
Now, on the topic of being powerful, the source tackles a classic puzzle, the omnipotence paradox. You've probably heard it. Can God create a rock so heavy he cannot lift it? The text takes a super analytical stance here. It defines true omnipotence as the ability to realize every possible affair, which necessarily includes the impossibility of failure. So, asking if an all-powerful being can fail is a logically meaningless question. It's actually just like asking someone to draw a square circle. Failure simply is not a feature of true power. Let's look at that final attribute, will. The text argues that the eternal creator must have a will because it chose to bring the universe into existence when it could have just easily remained non-existent. The source uses a great tea analogy for this. You can explain a cup of tea purely scientifically, right? Water boiling at 100 degrees Celsius, permeating a tea bag. But you can also explain it personally. The tea exists because I wanted to make some tea. The text argues that the universe requires that kind of personal explanation, a conscious choice by a creator with a will. So wrapping up this explainer, the source leaves us with one seriously provocative question. When people hear about a creator, the most common objection is always, well, who created God? But as the text argues, if we have successfully established this fundamental logical distinction between a finite universe that comes to be and a first cause that always was, then asking what created the uncreated, well, it simply doesn't make logical sense. It's a really fascinating logical framework, building step by step from a simple thought experiment all the way up to the origins of reality and the logic behind eternal creation. I highly recommend taking a moment to just think about how all these logical steps fit together for you. Thanks so much for tuning in, and as always, keep on learning.